Hi, I'm Dr. Rick Fitzgibbons. Welcome to the Selfish Spouse chapter at maritalhealing.com. In a culture like ours, all of us have challenges with selfishness. It has a pull on every single one of us. If you want to see what the degree of selfishness in your marriage, I'd recommend that in the Selfish Spouse chapter, you rate yourself on the selfishness checklist. You might also consider rating your spouse. You may be in for some surprises. I know if I'd done that in the early part of my work, I would have probably scored quite high on that issue. It's a challenge for us to address this issue. It's very, very important that we address this issue because selfishness inflicts terrible harm upon marriages. It inflicts terrible harm upon children. And how does that happen? Well, selfishness basically pulls us in upon ourselves, when in fact, we're hardwired to give ourselves. We're hardwired to be giving to others, especially our spouse, not just to be looking out for ourselves, but thinking, how can I make my spouse happy? How can I be responsible for my spouse? How can I be responsible for my children? Over the past 35 years, I've had an opportunity and a pleasure of working with several thousand couples. This has been the most common conflict that I've worked with in marriages. And the whole role of positive psychology can be extremely helpful here. That is, working at identifying virtues that can help you grow and overcome selfishness. What are they? The first virtue is generosity, to think that you want to be giving. Every day to think, I want to be giving to my spouse. I want to be giving to my children. I just don't want to look out for number one and turn in and just take care of myself. That's not fulfilling. Secondly, self-denial. In the traditional view of marriage that preceded the very flawed psychological view of marriage, people denied themselves. They knew that to be a spouse, and especially from a Christian perspective, to be another Christ to your spouse, you have to deny yourself and to embrace a cross. And there's actually fulfillment in doing that, that you feel better when you give yourself, when you sacrifice yourself for your spouse, when you sacrifice yourself for children. Thirdly, because selfishness causes so much excessive anger in marriage, the virtue of forgiveness that is discussed in more depth in the marital anger chapter, that virtue is very important to learn. And to learn an immediate forgiveness exercise where you think, I want to be loyal to the goodness in my spouse, to see that goodness, and to think about forgiving my spouse. And if I can't forgive them, to turn it over to God. Finally, the role of faith is very, very helpful here. If you turn to God and you ask Him, help me conquer this character weakness. If you're Catholic, take this weakness to the Sacrament of Reconciliation, take it to the Eucharist. As you work to conquer this weakness, self-mastery grows. You develop a healthier personality, a mature personality. You're easier to live with. You're happier with your wife. Your children are happier. You have nothing to lose. Please consider reading the chapter on the spouse, on the selfish spouse, and viewing the webinar and also the video in this chapter on this most important issue.